BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
You're about to listen to another episode of the food programme. Episodes will be released weekly wherever you get your podcasts. But if you're in the UK, you can listen to the latest episodes a whole week earlier than anywhere else. First on BBC Sounds.
So the first part of the tasting is done with the nose. Okay? So what you do is you try and coat this little glass. What you're trying to do is increase the surface area. Because it's an oil, it doesn't naturally evaporate. So
I'm in an office block on the outskirts of London, doing something I have never done before.
And then, if you're brave, then you take a good sniff.
I am taste testing olive oil.
And if you're brave, you're going to tell me what you smell.
I smell olive oil. My guide is the managing director of Britain's biggest olive oil brand, Walter Zanri from Filippo Berio, UK.
Green tomatoes.
Yeah.
Very fresh.
Yeah.
It's a bit cut grass.
Sure.
So there are these aromas that come through from...
As soon as you say it, then I get it. I'm like, yeah, green tomatoes.
Then the second part of the tasting is that you take about half a teaspoon of olive oil. You try and coat your tongue.
Drinking rather than drizzling olive oil does feel a little bit strange, and sampling it properly requires a bit of skill.
And then you have to draw some air across to bring it to the back of the palate. It's a beautiful word in Italian. It's called the strippaggio. And that's again because it doesn't evaporate in that, and so to get to the sensitive tissues at the back, you've got to bring some air across.
I'm going to watch you do it, and then I'm going to copy. I'll try and do it as pros.
And then you wait.
The sniffing and the slurping unlocks different dimensions of flavour. Try not to inhale the oil. Oh my God.
Irritating the back of the...
Wow, that's pepper.
So there's that pepperiness or pungency is the technical term. So just first of all, how is your palate left? It's quite clean. So you consider you've just drunk some olive oil. You'd expect your mouth to be greasy, but it's left very clean.
Yeah.
And the reason for that's an oil in good condition. In the middle, you've got sort of some woody notes, artichokey flavours, maybe even almond. It's very similar to the taste, the way that you taste wines, because you get the complexity and that length of finish is very, very important.
I'm Leyla Kazim, and in this edition of the food programme, I'm going to be taking a much closer look at olive oil, a product which has been in the headlines a lot recently. Now, I am an absolutely huge fan of olive oil. It's one of my desert island ingredients. It's the only fat I cook with in my kitchen. I use it to dress so many things, including salads. And I think the two of us probably get through a litre bottle every couple of weeks. But perhaps you, like me, have had to think twice about buying olive oil recently because it has just become so expensive.
The skyrocketing price of your olive oil due to disease, wildfires and drought.
Just picked up this 500 millilitre bottle of olive oil. It's in a plastic bottle and it's pretty much bob on the average price at the moment, which is £8.04. It's way more expensive than wine. It's no wonder they call it liquid gold.
I like to use olive oil, but it's too expensive to use anymore.
You avoid the olive oil altogether?
Not altogether, but I'll only probably get it if it's on offer.
I am Alex Lawrence. I am the Senior Strategic Insight Director at Sicily. Essentially, we had 2 very bad years of harvest in Spain due to drought. Spain actually account for almost half of the global production. Actually, it's down to a third now because of the drought that they had. But essentially, that has pushed the prices of olive oil, or the commodity prices of olive oil, sky high. They've rocketed since January 2021, peaking in January 2024. So I think at the moment the price of olive oil is around $10,000 per metric tonne, and that's actually 140% higher, almost 2.5 times higher than it was in January 22. And actually since then the harvests in Spain have improved, weather's been a bit milder, and the price of olive oil as a commodity has sort of dropped since then, but it's still 30% higher than it was in January 22.
So how does the wholesale price translate to what we're paying in the shops? Here's Walter Zanri of Filippo Berio again.
The biggest selling size we have in the UK is the half litre. At the end of 2022, that would have been £3.75 on a supermarket shelf. At the end of last year, it was £10.50.
Wow.
And I'm really, really amazed at how resilient consumption's been, because over the 2 years, consumption in the UK has probably fallen by about 20%. But if 3 years ago you told me we would be at £10.50, I would have said we wouldn't have been able to sell a bottle. So people that are buying olive oil are really very, very attached. It's a product that they want and they need. We're now on the downside of the cycle, and we're starting to see prices come back down. One of the things that we also saw during that period is that household penetration fell. So during the COVID period, household penetration reached 57% for olive oil.
And does this mean how many households have olive oil in them?
How many households use olive oil? Mm-hmm. The latest data that we have, it's fallen down to about 47. 47% is where we were in 2004. So these 2 years have sort of knocked back 10 or 15 years of olive oil development. As prices come down, we expect a lot of consumers to come back into the category, but some now will have formed new usages, new loyalties, and they're using other products. So it's not automatically that if the price gets back to where it was, that everyone is going to come back in.
Where have those customers gone to? What are they using now, do you think?
There in the olive oil world, we have the product called extra virgin, which is very green, very strong in flavour. Then we have a product, just to confuse everyone, that's called olive oil, which is a blend of refined oils and some extra virgin, much lighter in flavour. That's an oil that's easily substitutable with something like a sunflower oil or a vegetable oil. And I think for everyday cooking, people have moved out of those oils and gone into those everyday vegetable oils. The principal reason for people to have been using an olive oil is health. But it's put itself in a position where it's become so expensive that people have had to come out. Extra virgin has been more resilient, and I think that's because there's not much else that you can dress your salad with. It delivers a flavour profile that not any other oil does, and so I think people have stayed with that.
So the spiralling prices and volatility in the olive oil market have forced some regular users to go elsewhere. But where there is uncertainty, there is also opportunity. And in this programme, we're going to be shining light on a new emerging trend that might surprise you. The rise of English olive oil.
I do think as climate change increases or happens over time, then the areas that you can grow in will expand. It's the same as wine. 10 years ago, no one was doing English wine. Now it seems to be all over the place. And we'll see the same thing with olives.
When I first did it, all my Spanish, Italian, French friends were like, no, you can't, that's impossible. You'll never be able to grow a tree in England. We grew the trees, predictably enough. They're like, oh, well, yeah, it's easy to grow the trees. The real difficult bit is making the oil. Yeah, we can make an oil, but to make a really good oil, that's what we want to be. But we've got the raw ingredient. We've got the olives.
Those were aspiring English olive oil producers Nick Butcher from Cornwall and Pete Thompson from Essex. And we at the Food Programme are aware of a total of at least 4 different English producers, all hoping to start a new English olive oil market. And they are serious. The English Olive Oil Company in the Fens has planted some 18,000 olive trees across 25 acres. So, olive groves are beginning to march across the English countryside. We'll be visiting some of their farms in a moment. First, though, my colleague Dan Saladino has been to Sicily to witness how the recent drought has affected production there.
It's February, and on the outskirts of Chiaramonte Golfi, part of the province of Ragusa, trees are being pruned in the olive groves. This is noisy but skillful work, and it's an essential process if you want to create the very best olive oil, as the owner of the Segni estate, Daniele Cipolla, tells me as we walk past rows of centenarian trees.
I think the 80% are more than 100 years old trees. In this period we are pruning the trees
What is the name of the cultivar?
The name of cultivar is Tondeblea. Tondeblea is a really old Sicilian cultivar.
Which I think translates as the ball of the mountain.
Yeah.
So these cultivars, Tondeblea, has over maybe thousands of years adapted to the conditions and the soil.
Yes, but now the climate, is changing. The trees in this moment, I think, are a little bit confused because we haven't the alternation of the seasons. And in the summer, the temperature go really high in the last years. And this is not good for the trees, also because it was rain really, really less year after year. And the trees are trying to adapt to this changing.
But the climate is changing more quickly than the trees can adapt.
Yeah, for sure.
But for now, at least before the intense heat arrives, the trees are looking green and vibrant. And they're tall, the highest branches reaching around 20 feet, and every part is shrouded in an abundance of tough, thin, waxy leaves.
The olives start with the flowering in May, and this is a really important moment because the flowers change in olives if everything go in the right way.
Those flowers will become the olive, the fruit.
Yeah, the fruit. And we start the harvest at the end of September because we picked up only green olives. In this way we have a really high quality of oil. If you pick it up late, so you pick it up violet or black olives, you have a bigger production, but the quality go down.
Why is that? Why is the green olive, why does that produce better olive oil?
Because the green olives are really full of polyphenol, and the polyphenol go down with the maturation.
The Tondeblea is not a high-yielding tree.
No.
It's about quality. So is it possible to give an idea of how many olives one tree can produce?
Yeah, normally the Tondeblea give the 10% of oil. So it means with 100 kilos of olives, we have just 10 kilos of oil. Other cultivars give more and more oil, from the 16 to the 22%, just to have an idea.
And Daniele's philosophy, a slower and smaller production, extends to the harvest. In some systems, machines are deployed in groves to grab and shake trees until the olives fall to the ground. At Senya, it's done in a more traditional way.
We harvest the olives by hand. In the past, we tried with the mechanical harvesting, but I think we stressed too much the trees. This is the reason why I picked up old style by hand.
But after the harvest, to keep the olives and their oil at the very best, things do speed up. The aim during the month-long harvest is to transfer the fruit from the trees to the mill as quickly as possible.
We transform the olives every day. So we pick up the olives, and after maximum 8 hours are oil.
Why so quickly does it need to be processed?
Because in this way we haven't oxidation of the olives.
Now, Sicily in recent years, so we've seen extreme weather conditions. We've had flooding, and we've also had temperatures almost close to 50 degrees. So what has that meant for the olive harvests?
The temperatures are really important, because if we have a really high temperature, the trees are stressed and they don't produce properly, because first they take care to the trees, after, if they can, they produce the olive.
So if it's really extreme temperatures, they will protect themselves, and to protect themselves they might not use the energy and the resources to produce the olive.
Yeah. Exactly. Till 10 years ago, we never thinking to give water to the olive trees. Now is a necessity to give some water to the trees.
Before you could depend on the rain, and now that is not something you can depend on.
Exactly.
Well, let's go inside, because I think there's a story that we can tell from some of the equipment that you have here. And you can tell me that what happens next to the olives once they're harvested. Inside an old stone farm building with high walls, dominating a room is a large piece of machinery made of stone, wood and metal. It's so impressive. We've got this huge granite wheel inside a bowl. This is not how you press the olives today, but this helps us understand how the process works.
Yeah, this worked till 1950. And this was the first oil mill with a mechanical engine, because before worked with the traction of the animals.
And the process to do that in this old machine would have been very simple. The olives are placed inside the large metal bowl-like container, and then the two stones, each weighing a ton, crushes them into a pulp. Back in the day, this pulp was then placed on a series of filters made with natural fibres, such as jute. The liquid that passes through is left to settle, and as it settles, oil separates from the water that was also in the pulp. Today, the process is carried out using a centrifuge, but at Daniele's mill, throughout every stage, the aim is to keep processing to a minimum, including ensuring the temperature of the fruit being processed and the oil produced never exceeds 22 degrees.
To have a good quality, we have to do an extraction with low temperature. Right. If you want quantity, you have the extraction with a higher temperature, because with a higher temperature you extract more oil, but the quality go down.
And this term that we are familiar with, but few of us understand why it is described this way, extra virgin olive oil.
Extra virgin olive oil means an oil that have an acidity less than 0.8. Our extra virgin olive oil normally at the end of the extraction have an acidity of 0.1, so really low.
Can we please taste some of your olive oil?
Yeah, sure.
So here we have a small cup of your olive oil.
It's quite green. This oil have now about 5 months. The smell is of just cut grass and green tomatoes. At the taste, a little bit spicy and bitter.
Let me try some. But not in an unpleasant way, because it is strange, because in a way I feel like I'm drinking fruit juice. As you say, it's got a nice kind of bitter edge to it. And it's still working in my mouth because there's spicy and grassy, but I want to keep tasting because there's more and more. It's complex.
Yeah. In your mouth, there's an evolution during the tasting,
which ends up with that kick that you get. There is something that happens in the back of my throat that makes me think this is such a really powerful food.
This extra virgin olive oil, believe me, it's like a medicine.
Dan Saladino in the warmth of the olive groves of Sicily. And from the Mediterranean, we travelled to a farm on the outskirts of Harwich in Essex. Hi, Pete.
Oh, yeah. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. I cannot tell you how excited I have been to visit you and your olive trees. Here, farmer Pete Thompson has 2 groves with a total of 1,800 olive trees.
Well, it's quite remote. You've come on quite a nice day. Mm-hmm. Usually people turn up when it's like windy, cold, wet, and I'm trying to say, it's like the Mediterranean and a howling gale, driving rain. So you've come on a good day. There's some blue sky.
There is. I just actually didn't know that there were olive groves in the UK. So this is like a whole new thing to me, and I think probably to our listeners as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the oldest one what went in 2018, I think. So they've been here a while, and we've just been sort of chugging along, learning the ropes, sort of gradually getting closer to sort of making a bit more noise about it. And then, we've been picking olives pretty much ever since.
Have you actually produced olive oil to sell yet?
Not to sell, no.
Okay.
No, so we Bear in mind, our trees went into the ground, they were 2 years old. That was the oldest grave of 2018, and the youngest grave went in 2020, I think it was. And normally you wouldn't expect an olive tree to be coming into proper cropping, as it were, until they're about 7 years old.
Okay.
So we're just about hitting our stride now, and as you'll see, there's quite a lot of flower on the trees at the moment, so it bodes well. We had 2 rubbish years the last couple of years, really grey, dull, wet summers, whereas so far this summer's been pretty good, certainly a nice spring. But we've made tiny little amounts of olive oil, and we've done the boring bit. We've been sending things to the lab and proving it's got enough oil content, and it's got the same oil content as if you're growing something in Tuscany or Sicily or wherever. I've tasted it, I'm just a farmer from Essex. It tastes like olive oil.
Yeah.
So I haven't really got the aficionado to say, oh yeah, that's amazing. But we've gradually progressed, so we're gradually learning more and more about them. We've got lots of varieties, lots of characteristics. We want to make a really, really good oil. It's got to be an extra virgin olive oil, and until we're really confident, and actually we've got the boring bit, the science that says yes, it's got enough polyphenols or whatever, we don't really want to really go hell for leather. I want people coming back and buying it because it's really good, not just because it's an English olive oil.
Yeah. We did a previous episode about avocados, and as part of it I went to visit some huge and prolifically productive avocado trees in the middle of London.
Yeah.
Which blew my mind.
Yeah.
They were just absolutely covered. So then I thought, well, if we can grow avocados here, then yeah, why not olives?
If you think what's become normal, so grapes have become normal, at least for wine in the UK. There's various, we've grown melons off and on over the years in the business. What else is there? Apricots, quite a big UK crop now, which you would associate usually with the south of France. So it's all coming along, and it's just those fine margins as we adapt to climate change and the just changing seasons. The doors open.
I'm blown away, and I really just want to go and see them in flower. Actually.
Yeah, we'll go and jump in the truck.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Cool.
That would be great.
Yeah, you could be in Provence looking down on the Camargue. You've got all the water coming in below, sort of Hamford water.
Yeah.
You've got that really lovely big sky and light levels. Got a nice breeze. So actually when we come to pollination time, we've got a lovely, fairly gentle breeze that comes through here. So it's got everything going for it. The only difference perhaps to being out in the mid, it's got a sort of a silty loam rather than something quite rocky, but it's fertile soil, and then it's managing what's underneath. So having a sward which isn't just grass, which has got lots of other things in it as well.
Really are a lot of flower buds.
Yeah, and this is,
wow.
There's multiple varieties in here. These aren't probably the most, but you can see how much flower we've got on here.
Yeah.
Not every flower is going to be an olive.
So we are in the second grove, which is gently sloping, and there's row upon row of olive trees that are about as tall as me, if not taller, and they are really quite covered in flower buds, which is amazing. Explain, Pete, why this is such a good place to grow olives.
We're on a peninsula, we're sticking out into the North Sea, so we've got sea to the north, we've got Hamford water just here in front of us to the south, and we've got sea to the east. So you get really good light levels because we're that close to the sea, so our light levels are high. We're also the hottest, the driest part of the UK, so it's sort of, if it's going to work anywhere, it'll work here. We're not going to get the heat of the Mediterranean, so we need to maximise everything else we've got, hence the light levels here. But it's also temperature as well. So because of that maritime climate, when it's cold inland, we're a few degrees warmer here. When it's really, really baking inland, we're a few degrees cooler here. And it's just knocking off those sort of rough edges, if you like, which makes a real difference. But I think coastal is probably where we can start, and perhaps as climate changes, they'll gradually drift inland.
What were people saying to you when you first told them about your big olive dreams?
Depends where they came from, really. My Mediterranean friends all thought I was daft. I know the word for daft in loads of different languages. Friends and family here just humoured me because they know that I'm prone to having slightly daft ideas, I guess. But we've done it. We've done the work. We spent a couple of years before anything went in the ground researching it. There's a lot of boring desk-based study. There's a lot of fun travel out to Catalonia and Sicily to learn the trade. And then you have to take a punt because all the research out there is about growing olives in France or in Sicily or in California. It's not about growing olives in the UK. So you take an educated guess, really, when you're choosing your varieties. You're limited by what varieties are available as well from the nurseries, with all the problems of Chiella around Europe. So,
and what's that?
It's a disease which has ravaged olive groves across the Med, really terrible in places like Tuscany, which is a real threat, to olive and olive oil production. And it's pretty much terminal, if you get that in your grove. And that's another interesting benefit of us developing olives as a crop in the UK, because we are this little island of perhaps safety for olives, and we can graft cuttings from these olives and create little trees that we can send back if the worst was to happen, on the mainland, as it were.
Well, I, for one, cannot wait to try your olive oil one day, Pete.
I've tried quite a few times to make it. I've demolished my kitchen at home.
You tried to make it in your kitchen?
I tried to make it in my kitchen, and actually...
press the olives?
Yeah, I sort of did it, watched a few YouTube videos, as you do, and used what I got in the kitchen. And quite often, even the tiniest producer in Sicily, they're not pressing it. They're taking it down to the co-op, where they've got a guy that's been pressing olives since he was 5, and he's now 70, and his grandparents all did it before him. So there's that system set up. We don't have an infrastructure at all. So that's the next challenge, really, is developing that infrastructure, both for us and for other people, making their oils in the UK. There's a few of us that are venturing into this, and I think you'll find that we'll probably work together quite closely.
Pete Thompson showing me his olive groves in Essex. You're listening to the Food Programme with me, Leyla Kazim, and this week we're taking a close look at the unlikely but growing industry of English olive oil. Our relationship with olive oil in Britain goes back further than you might think. We called on the services of food historian Dr. Annie Gray to debunk some serious myths.
If you put into the internet, and therefore it is repeated in lots of books, where did olive oil come from, or when did Britain first start using olive oil, you will get, and I quote because I did this yesterday, in the UK, olive oil was historically sold in pharmacies, chemists, primarily as a medicinal remedy rather than for culinary uses. But that's just not true. So I think one of the reasons that we think that's true is because we tend to think of ourselves as terribly sophisticated, and we associate olive oil with beautiful, balmy Mediterranean holidays and a kind of wave of Mediterranean food that hit the UK in the 1960s and 70s. Partly because of food writers, Elizabeth David is always quoted, but she did not single-handedly introduce Mediterranean food to Britain. Partly because of package holidays and that kind of thing. And I think the other reason that we think olive oil was only available medicinally is because a lot of people did not use it, especially between the wars and after the wars. But that certainly doesn't mean that lots of other people didn't use it. And we know from the historical sources that it has been in this country since the Roman era.
OK, so firstly, where did the pharmacy myth come from? How did that even come about?
So olive oil was sold in pharmacies, and the majority fat used in Britain really up until the 1970s was butter, or sometimes lard, or sometimes dripping. We used solid fats, we used animal fats. So olive oil was used by some people, but it was used very, very specifically as a salad oil. And that's another reason that I think we get very confused looking back, because if we were to go to a recipe book from, say, the 19th century and look under the index for olive oil, we wouldn't find it, but we would find entries for salad oil. And the two are used interchangeably, but salad oil was the majority term. So you wouldn't find it in books, you wouldn't find it represented, but you would find it in a pharmacy because it was used to clear earwax. But it was also sold in grocers' shops. So I think it's that bit. We've got half a truth. We haven't got the whole truth.
So people who were using it in the kitchen back then would have bought it in grocery shops?
Yes, and they would have bought it in grocery shops really all the way through from certainly the 17th century onwards. I mean, the Romans introduced olive oil. Obviously, they were importing it because they used it as their majority oil. When they left, they took the idea with them. They may or may not have planted olive trees. There's really very little evidence. There are a few olive pips, olive stones that predate the Romans, but it seems they imported the oil and left. But it was still being imported throughout the medieval period because there are references to it throughout that era. So clearly they were buying it somewhere. And that meant the kind of shops and merchants who would become grocers. And then when in the 17th century you start to get really the growth of shops as we would know them, that's when you start to see references specifically to olive oil in grocers' lists. So I've got one here from 1749 in Edinburgh, and this is an advert placed in the Caledonian Mercury that says, "Just arrived, and they're to be sold by Hugh Campbell at his shop opposite to the Crosswell, Edinburgh." And it goes on with this big long list of things like raisins and sugar and dried fruit, and then it says, "Best olive oil for eating." So it's very specifically for culinary use, and that's 1749.
Wow, this is like blowing my mind of what I thought the history of olive oil was. The people who were buying it then to cook with, how did they know what to do with it? Were there recipes at this point?
Yes, I think some of it is the way in which we all know how to do things with olive oil. You know, we now don't need to be told sort of specifically how to put olive oil on a salad, because we watch, we learn, we see how people use it. So we know that olive oil is great just drizzled on a salad. You don't even need to mix it into a dressing. But there are recipe books. The first recipe books start to appear in Britain, printed recipe books, that is, in the 16th century. And by the 17th and 18th century, you've got loads of them. And some do deal specifically with olive oil. So there's a chap called John Evelyn who wrote a book in the 1660s called Assateria, which is all about salads, specifically. The whole book salads. It's an incredible thing. It has pull-out charts so you can see which salads go with which things and what you can use. And the range of things he is using, the range of leaves and vegetables, it's unbelievable from a modern perspective. And in it, he talks about salad oil and olive oil and how important it is to get a good quality one and how to use it. So it is around.
And did Mrs. Beeton share a quote about some of the virtues of olive oil at some point?
Yeah, and she's often misquoted. I think she's sort of part of the reason that people think that nobody ate olive oil, because I've seen parts of this quote taken out of context to suggest that she's being a bit snarky about it, which I don't think she is at all. So her full quote in her little section on olive oil is, "The oil extracted from olives, called olive oil or salad oil, is with the continentals in continual request, more dishes being prepared with than without it, we should imagine. With us, it is principally used in mixing a salad, and when thus employed, it tends to prevent fermentation and is an antidote against flatulency." So, I mean, partly it's interesting because she clearly is saying olive oil is in use in this country mainly for salads, but other countries use it more. And partly it's just funny because she believes olive oil will stop you farting.
Dr. Annie Gray on the supposed anti-flatulent properties of olive oil. And for a deeper scientific look at the health benefits of olive oil, there is an excellent Just One Thing from Dr. Michael Mosley on this very subject on BBC Sounds. Now let's meet Nick Butcher, an olive oil producer in the far west of England, who believes he is the first to commercially bottle olive oil ahead of those other aspiring English olive oil producers. Robin Markwell went to meet him.
Well, we're standing outside a village pub in Cornwall, and it's the King's Head. Which village are we in, Nick?
Ruan Lanninghorn. And it was actually sat here in this pub that we decided to go ahead and form Vela Ruan.
Like so many good ideas, you came up with it in a pub.
I don't know how the conversation started, but I did mention that I'd always wanted to try growing olives and that I believed that this is the kind of area that it would work and we could make olive oil. And then a local farmer and a local landowner offered the use of their lands. You know, it's, well, if you get it set up, why don't you try it here? And someone else came in and said, well, yeah, let's do it and I'll fund it. So that's how it all started. It's not something for the risk-averse people to set up or to try and do, but it's something that a lot of people have bought into since. You know, the local community, the local villages all turn up and have a look at the olives. Most people have access to the oil or have bought it or tried it. No one yet has said they don't like it, which is a great benefit for us. And yeah, it all started with a casual conversation in a pub.
A short drive from the pub is a field where we inspect the very first of Nick's olive trees. His ambition is to plant 10,000 across 5 different sites.
We're looking at our first set up test pod of 20 olive trees, which are in fruit already with tiny little fruit on them, which will grow through the summer and be ready for harvest in October.
And they're tightly packed together like a little army regiment, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Some of the smaller ones, as some develop, whatever fruit grows quickest will take that nutrient from the tree, and some of the others will drop off. So where you've got a pod of about 50 at the moment, there won't be 50 olives there, there'll be about 20. So it's natural selection, I suppose, of the strongest and best olives.
And they're very mature trees, aren't they? They've got very thick trunks.
Yeah, we took trees that were between 12 and 15 years old, so they've already had a working past. So we know they historically fruit, and that lessened the risk of doing it.
Exciting, isn't it?
It is. It's really exciting and equally scary.
Well, on the scary side, can we talk money? I mean, in supermarkets recently, we've seen olive oil, maybe a litre, £8-9. Do you think you can match that sort of thing or undercut it?
No. And again, what you've got in supermarkets is mass-produced, lower quality, blended olive oil.
So what are you retailing at then at the moment, your stuff?
The bottles we do of the winter press, which is what's on sale now, and we've still got a few left, but not many, is £15 for a 250ml bottle, which is the only size we retail. It's about the right size that once you've opened it, you can get through it quite quickly, which is £60 a litre.
Pretty steep, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but we've had no problem with people paying that. In fact, some places do charge a premium on it, but as long as if we sell to a retailer, then we'll sell it at trade and they can put their markup on it. But
do you think that will change? You talk about these economies of scale. When you get more and more trees here, could you see the price coming down of your end result?
Yes and no. On the extra virgin and the winter press, yes. As we get more volume, then we will be able to look at cutting the price or not increasing it year on year, which is effectively the same thing. But on premium oils, they are going to be expensive. They are going to be very expensive because they're very high quality and they don't create the volume.
Down a path at the end of the field, we meet Katie, who's lent some of her land to Nick's olive growing endeavours.
It's just lovely. The whole romance of being able to walk out there and walk among the olive trees is one of the reasons why we wanted to get involved, really.
What do you make of that notion of England producing olive oil?
Well, it's not something I knew would be possible over here. I didn't realise that, they needed rain. So that's something we can provide in Cornwall.
In about 10 minutes by the look of the sky.
And how much have you researched this, Nick? Because you haven't been a farmer, have you? I mean, you were in HR, weren't you, for years?
I was an HR consultant for 20-odd years, yeah. But, I mean, we did research a lot. We researched the technical side, but there was as much almost suck it and see, trial and error, as it was anything else. But I had the confidence that we could do it. Luckily, it turned out that we could. Why no one's done it before, I have no idea. Now's the time to do it. And the more English olive oil we have on the market, the less importing and therefore transport costs of olive oil to provide for the market there is in the UK.
Could we sample a little?
You certainly can.
Katie, will you join us? We're outside now on the table and there's a little dipping bowl of Nick's winter press. It's a lovely darkish golden hue. Nick's just sampled a bit.
It is. I mean, the flavour profile, it has a sort of grassy smell to it, but it is a very smooth, rich oil with, I suppose, the pepperiness is what comes across most. I mean, there is that peppery feel, but it's very smooth going down and a lovely salty aftertaste.
It is. It's so smooth. But it does make you think of the sun. It is the peppery aftertaste, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the taste of Cornwall.
How does that differ from Mediterranean oil, do you think, in terms of taste profile?
It's less mild. A lot of the Mediterranean oils are a milder taste. And it's more pungent, I suppose, from a taste profile rather than just aroma, that it does stick on your lip a lot longer than Mediterranean oils.
What do you think, Katie? How does it compare?
Great for a dressing, because it's got such a depth of flavour, hasn't it?
Just going to try a little sample. Oh, very peppery, isn't it? Yeah, there's something, the real flavour to it. That is different and rich.
So you weren't expecting that?
I wasn't expecting that.
For a radio audience, he's got a really big smile on his face now.
And for a radio audience, we should say the rain has just started in Cornwall, hasn't it? Which seems appropriate when we're talking about Mediterranean climate. That's farming, Nick.
It does. I mean, that's Cornwall. You know, it's sunny one minute, then hacking it down the next.
But the olive trees will like it, you say?
Yeah, they'll love a bit of rain this time of day, and then hopefully we'll have a nice, warm, sunny evening. A little bit of rain overnight. Gorgeous day tomorrow. That's perfect.
Nick, thanks for your time. Katie, can we shelter in your chapel?
Yes, of course you can. Robin Markwell reporting whilst also getting slightly wet in Cornwall. And the British weather is one of the reasons the big players in the olive oil world don't seem too concerned about the rising competition from oil producers here just yet. Walter Zanri from Filippo Berio again. So what are your thoughts about British produced olive oil?
So, I wish the people that are planting olive groves the best of luck, because I really think that that's possibly just a bridge too far. I don't believe that we're anywhere near the climate having changed sufficiently for you to be able to ripen olives.
But you know, this is what the wine industry said right at the beginning of England trying to produce wine. They're like, it's never going to work, the weather's not going to work, you're not going to get any good products. And now there is some of the best sparkling wines in the world.
We're going to sparkling white wines. To make a red wine, you need to have that Mediterranean climate. The climate that we have here is not too dissimilar to the climate in northern France, where Champagne is, and so that's why we're able to produce white wines. And if you just think, in the countries that are growing olives on a commercial basis, you've got temperatures of around 40 degrees for 6 to 8 weeks of the year. And we're just so far away from that. There just isn't, I think, in my opinion, sufficient sunshine in this country to be able to mature and ripen olives.
Whether you think olive oil production will ultimately take off in this country or not, it is starting to happen. The entrepreneurs planting olive groves in Cornwall, Kent, Lincolnshire and Essex are a very real reminder of how our changing climate may soon be changing the contents of our kitchen cupboards too.